every single person that I heard talking about this book, everyone is blown away. Hello besties! Today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite booktubers and some of their favorite books of 2024. Not all of them. I'm going to link their full videos down below. Because this would be too long, and I'm going to comment, see if we have some books in common or if they have convinced me to pick up a series or a book as soon as possible. And the first booktuber that I'm going to start with is Mel from Mel Reads. I love her videos so much, and I love her descriptions of the books she reads. And specifically a series that she mentioned in her video has been popping up on my feed so many times on YouTube. A Curious Beginning. The first book is called A Curious Beginning. It is the Veronica Speedwell series. I really want to start this series at some point. This is one of her favorite books of 2024. It is a historical mystery, and she said that it has a lot of Sherlock Watson series style. So yeah, I'm very excited to start this series. She loved the dialogue so much. And she also mentioned that we have a witty, feisty FMC, and that is how I love them. And if you haven't heard about this series before, it is set in Victorian London. And our FMC in this book is a progressive female, and she is determined to live life on her own terms. And I also heard that we have a slow burn, rivals to lovers. I'm very excited to read this series. I'm happy to see it on her top list of the year. And that makes me really want to pick it up as soon as possible. It is a long series though. There are already 9 books out, so maybe 1 book per month or 1 book per 2 months. I want to take my time with it. I don't want to binge it, because I also heard some people say that if you binge the series, it would not have the same effect of the slow burn building up. So yeah, and also I have a lot of books to read. The second book that I picked from her video is The God and the Gumiho. I pulled it out since it was close to me, but I'm not going to pull out all the books. I love this so much. I read this book, I think it was in September or October, maybe September. I read it, I fell in love with it, I have told you about it. It has this K-drama manga style that is so well done. The dialogue is hilarious, and it made it to her top favorites of the year. It is an enemies to lovers. She said that she loves anything that has to do with the 9-tailed fox, the Gumiho, and that's what drew her to this story. And yes, I loved it so much. 100% agree. Hilarious. Not overly done to the point that it is cringy. I love the dialogue, I love the pace, and yeah, highly recommend. Also, if you want to laugh and at the same time have a great adventure, highly recommend this one too. She also mentioned a book that I also read this year, Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murder. It is a kind of cozy mystery that I really enjoyed. The characters are endearing, and she also mentioned that it is funny. Agree, totally agree. And she loved the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook too, and I also very much enjoyed it. So I recommend it too if you are looking for a, I want to say like a more of a classic mystery where you can envision how all the points connect to each other. And yeah, if you want to read a mystery with very memorable characters and a story that will make your heart melt, highly recommend this one too. The next booktuber that I'm going to talk about is Leonie from the book Leo. She loved some of the books she mentioned that I already read are One Dark Window and Bride by Ali Hazelwood. And of course, they are on the top of my list too. Agree, 100%, both of them. I think Mel also, yes, 100%. She also mentioned One Dark Window. A lot of the booktubers that I'm going to mention now mentioned One Dark Window in their top favorites of 2024 because it is such an amazing Gothic YA fantasy. You need to read it if you haven't read it yet. Moving on to Lachlan from Locke's Library. Her top favorite read from 2024, #1, not only for her, but a lot of people too. I'm going to mention a little bit further into the video. They have the same top favorite book of the year, The Sword of Kaigen. I really want to read this book. I have mentioned it, I think in my 2024 TBR. didn't read it, but I'm going to make it a priority for me this year. I'm going to try to read it in the beginning of the year as soon as possible, because every single person that I heard talking about this book everyone is blown away. She was blown away. She was like, this tops everything. This is one of my all-time favorite books. Every single person had the same reaction, and I'm 100% sure if I read it, I will fall in love with it. So I need to read it as soon as possible. She also mentioned the Kindred's Curse saga. The first book is Spark of the Everflame, and I think the last book is going to be published this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to 100% need to start the series this year. I have two series that I want to read this year. The Legends of Thesmar by Helen Scheurer and the Kindred Saga. These are like on the forefront of my TBR list of 2025. I want to make them a priority for me this year, these two series. There is also the Unhoneymooners on her list. I read the Unhoneymooners in 2023. I loved it. She also mentions the audiobook. I remember the audiobook being so hilarious. The characters are lovable. I loved every single bit of it. If you want to have a fun, good time, romantic, fun, good time, this is the book for you. And also, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder made it to her list. I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder 2 years ago, I think, and I didn't continue on with the series, even though I really fell in love with the first book. But I don't know, I had too many other books to read. And now, if I want to go back and read the rest of the series, I need to reread the first book, because I forgot a lot of the things that happened in that book. But I remember that it was so addictive that I couldn't stop the audiobook. And yes, it was definitely one of the best mystery thrillers I have read that year. Next, I have Raven-Haired Reader, Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader. I love her so much. She's like, she really gets excited about fantasy romance, and like that's the genre, that subgenre that I love too. And every single book that she speaks about, I want to pick up. Every single book that she's like, this one, besties. I'm like, yes. Say no more, or like, tell me more. I love her so much. And I think we enjoy a lot of the same books too. She mentioned one of the best romances that she read was Just for the Summer. I mentioned it too. It's just a good book. The emotional impact that that book will have on you when you read it is just remarkable. I loved it. It's not only about the romance. That's what I loved about that book. It touched my soul and my mind on so many different levels. I loved it so much. It was beautifully written. I 100% agree. A lot of emotion, yes. Gut-wrenching moments mixed with feel-good, heartfelt moments. 100% agree. Also, one of the books that she mentioned, and I am so happy that she started this series this year, These Infinite Threads, the second book in this Woven Kingdom series. She also fell in love. And I'm so happy that she did, because now we get to spread the message and more people will pick up that series, because it deserves all the hype in the world. And I'm so happy that she fell in love with it too. A book that she mentioned, and I also saw her mention it in another video, and I really want to read the series too. It is Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roerich. I personally heard only great things about the series, but what is stopping me is that I really want to read the Lady of Darkness series. I'm looking at it. The Lady of Darkness series before I start this one. I don't know if it is a spin-off. I think I heard maybe some characters appear from the Lady of Darkness series. I'm not sure, but I want to read that series first, because it is her first series too, before this one at least. Also, from her list, Quicksilver. We don't need to comment on that, of course, 100%. Also, the Kindred's Curse saga, and she specifically mentioned book 2. She said it is even better than book 1 in her opinion. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. She said that it had amazing characters and the side characters are to die for, and it has a very, very endearing found family. I need to read it as soon as possible, of course, when the moon hatched. Yes. And her first book, her top favorite, is also The Sword of Kaigen. We're going to read it. We're going to read it. Okay, the next booktuber that I'm going to talk about is Katie from Katie is Reading. One of the best books she read this year is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. This one right here, I still need to reread the first book and continue on with the series. I think by now it's better for me to just wait for the release of the third book and then just binge read the whole series, because I don't want to reread this again before the release date of the third one. And yeah, definitely going to continue on with this series too. But she really loved it. Like, she was raving about it and really, really made me want to reread the first book as soon as possible. She also mentioned one book that I have just finished reading, still on my Brandon Sanderson kick. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I loved it too. I loved it too. I'm going to talk about it more in detail in my January wrap up, but this made it to her top favorite books of 2024. And I can totally see why, because it is fresh in my mind. I just read this book. This book has a duality and a contrast that I didn't see before, because these two come from two different worlds, I want to say, locations, very, very different. And the story revolves around the Nightmare Painter. His name is Nikaro. And we have a young priestess. Her name is Yumi. And she's the only person, or like one of the only people, they are 14, I think, total, that can summon spirits and like make things happen for her people. Like, they have wishes or things that don't work, and the spirits help them with that. And something happens that links their fate together. The writing is beautiful. There are a lot of quotes in this book that I love. It really transported me, and I can see why. I can 100% see why this would make it to her top favorites of 2024. The next booktuber that I want to talk about is Liv from Liv's Library. Some of her favorite books were Caraval, Stalking Jack the Ripper, House of Flame and Shadow. Caraval, I loved it. You know, I love the Caraval series. She said that the first book was her favorite. I love the whole series. Stalking Jack the Ripper, have it right there. I still need to read it, but the way she talked about it made me want to pick it up as soon as possible, because maybe I will try my best to include it in this year's CBR, because at least the first book, because she was like, she fell in love with it, and it has a lot of anatomy, and the storyline is unique. It is Victorian London too. I think maybe it is comparable to Veronica Speedwell. I'm not sure. I haven't read them yet, but like the setting maybe is comparable. So yeah, I want to read it. Also, House of Flame and Shadow. And I want to mention something about House of Flame and Shadow. I gave that book 5 stars, and some of you were surprised that I didn't include it in my top favorites of 2024. I think I would have included it in the honorable mentions if I did an honorable mention section in the video, but I didn't. But because the other books that I have talked about, objectively, to be honest, were better, House of Flame and Shadow has like a special place in my heart because of the characters that are in the book. Because if you know what happened in that book, I don't want to say anything, I don't want to spoil anything. The characters and the things that happen in that book made it 5 stars for me. But if I want to judge it, comparing it to the other books that I read this year, objectively, When the Moon Hatched and Quicksilver, and like the Book of Azrael, compared also to the other Crescent City books, book 1 and book 2, this one is not the best. But even though it's not the best, I still gave it 5 stars because it's just, they hold a special place in my heart. So yeah, the next book that she mentioned is A Court of Silver Flames. I didn't know that she haven't read that book yet. She read it this year. I have read it, of course, like way back. But A Court of Silver Flames is one of the best books in the ACOTAR series, in my opinion. I loved Nesta's arc. I loved her redemption arc, you can say. I loved her story. The character development in that book is insane. I fell in love with her as much as I hated her, like everyone else. I fell in love with her story and her character, and and Cassian. Yeah, so it does not surprise me that it is on the top of her list. Also, she mentioned a book that I have never heard of before. It is called The 13th Child. She said that she ate this up. That is so creepy and thought-provoking. I went to Goodreads, did some research. So it is a Gothic YA fantasy, and we are following Hazel. She's the goddaughter of Death. The way she talked about it, and also it has a high rating on Goodreads too. So maybe I need to add this to my TBR too. Maybe next fall, or I'm not going to wait for fall anymore. It's just, fall is so short. I want to read it too because I'm intrigued by the things that happened. The synopsis really had me. And I think it is a standalone. Correct me if I'm wrong. The next YouTuber that I'm going to talk about is one of my favorites. Gavin reads it all. He read The Raven Cycle and fell in love, made it to his top favorites of 2024. I am so happy because it's one of my all-time favorite series. I love it. If you haven't read it yet, the most atmospheric series of all time. I love it. I love the characters, the friendships, the relationships. Everything in that series is top notch. And he loved it too. And I'm so happy to hear it. Quicksilver also got mentioned, and his top favorite, #1, is Lord of the Rings. Read it a long time before. Not gonna lie, a long time before, so forgot about it. But he said it was a reread for him too, and he loved it even more the second time around. So maybe I need to reread that series at some point too. Jess from Honest Fiction. She didn't have the top like books of 2024. She had top must-read fantasy romances of 2024. So these are all fantasy romances, and I think she's going to make another video. I saw her saying in the comments about her top 10 dark and contemporary romances, I think. She mentioned White Horse Black Knight. I heard that book being mentioned a lot of times on Instagram. I really want to read it. Peaches and Honey. I remember Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader also mentioned this in one of her wrap-ups, and she loved it so much. And I think she also said that it had a lot of beautiful quotes. Jess said the same thing, that the writing style is very poetic, and that it is similar to the storyline of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because I think the protagonist in this book also gains immortality from a god. But she said that it had more romance. So I'm very intrigued by this one. Also, Blood and Steel. It is book 1 in the Legends of Thesmar series. Told you I want to read it. And a book that I owned and haven't read yet is Nectar of the Wicked by Ella Fields. This made it to her top favorite list. It is a dark fantasy romance duo. It is only a duology, and I saw also a person commenting on her video and saying that they liked the second book even more than the first one. So I'm very eager to read it because, first of all, I love this cover. I love this artist. She's the same artist that made the covers for the Bonds That Die series, the OG covers. I love this style so much. And I'm also intrigued because of what she said about this book. And her #1 book was also The Sword of Kaigen. I don't know, maybe they read it together, maybe in a book club or something, because Everyone read The Sword of Kaigan but me last year, but I will read it. I will read it. She said it is one of mind-blowing too. Everyone is really, really amazed by this book. And yeah, because I saw it multiple times, I was like, now I regret not picking it up in 2024. But as I said, this year is the year. This year is the year. The next favorite list is from Jay. Jay from Captured in Words. He talks more about epic fantasy. I love his channel so, so much. One of the books that he mentioned, I saw it a lot on Booktube and Instagram too. I want to read it, not as soon as possible. No, I want to read it closer to the release date of the second book, Will of the Many. He said this is a must read. A must read. And I was like, yes, taking notes. A lot of twists, fast-paced. The setting is inspired by ancient Rome, and it is about an orphan who joined an elite academy, and he wants to uncover the government secrets, basically. And I also heard people say that this is the best fantasy book that they have ever read about a magical school. So I was like, yes, 100% going to pick it up. Also, a lot of readers said that this book reminded them a lot of Red Rising because, like Darrow in Red Rising, this is the name of the protagonist in this book. He's also trying to infiltrate the high-ranking elites of the society, but this is the only resemblance. Like, the premise is the same, but they are completely different stories. And a lot of the reviews on Goodreads said that if you enjoyed Red Rising, you will love this one. It's not sci-fi. I don't believe it is sci-fi. Overall, people are going crazy over this book. And yes, I'm going to also make it a priority for me to read this year. As I said, closer to the release date of the second book. I think it's going to release this September. He also mentioned one of the series that I heard Olivia Reads a Latte. I'm so sad that she isn't in this video because she didn't publish yet her top favorites of 2024 video. At the time I'm filming this video, she didn't publish it yet. So yeah, I wanted to include her. She's one of my top favorite booktubers too, but I heard her mention Will of the Many. She loved it because I watched a vlog where she was like really, really falling in love with the book. So I'm 100% sure this is going to be one of her top favorites of 2024. Also, I heard her mention Malice. Malice is the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, and Jay said that if you love action movies, adventure movies, you will love this book. I have heard great things about it too when Olivia was talking about Malice, the first book. Here he was talking about the whole series. The series is called The Faithful and the Fallen, as I said. And he said that his favorite book was book number 4. I believe it is called Wrath, I think. He said that they have animal companions, lovable characters, and great family dynamics and the endearing relationships between family members and friendships. And you end up really, really loving the characters and caring for them so much. And he also mentioned that it has some amazing, amazing, outstanding battle scenes. I really want to read this series too. It is only 4 books. I know that the books are a bit long, but he mentioned that they read pretty fast. They are very fast-paced. So yeah, I want to read this series too. And he also mentioned Jade City. Jade City, I have heard, I think it made it to Rachel from Ravenhead Reader. Rachel's favorite books of 2023. If I'm not wrong, I remember her falling in love with that series. 100% sure it made it to her top favorites of 2023. She really was talking about it in a lot of videos that she made. So it is one of her favorites too. The pitch on Goodreads about Jade City says that it is a gripping Godfather-esque saga of intergenerational blood feuds, vicious politics, magic, and kung fu. And I know that it is like a mafia story but fantasy, and they are fighting over jade. Jade, I think it is the most precious thing because it is the source of magic, I believe, in this world. Yeah, they are on an island, and it is the only place in the world that produces rare magical jade. I heard only great things about it. The action scenes, the plot of the series in general is mind-blowing. So yeah, I really want to get to the series too. And that was it for me today. If you made it this far, leave me the green heart emoji and let me know which are the series that you were convinced to start in 2025. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!